Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Military help is on the way for flood-devastated parts of British Columbia, which is now under a state of emergency.
I can confirm there are hundreds of Canadian Armed Forces members currently headed to British Columbia to help with everything from supplies to evacuation to whatever is needed. There are thousands more on standby.
A first wave of 300 troops will help people get to safety, keep roads clear, and provide air support. The state of emergency gives the province more options in responding to the disaster. It also allows the government to impose travel restrictions and ban hoarding and price gouging. The province has yet to take those steps, but the Premier has this message for residents. Nearly 20,000 people are still out of their homes in BC. They're either evacuated or stranded with no way to get home. APTN's Tina House met one family that were out of town when the floods hit, and now they can't get back. Tina?
Thank you. With so many people left stranded because of this latest storm, I'm here with the D'Angeli family that are here in Langley at a hotel trying to get home. Mike, tell me about your experience here since the storm happened.
So we made a quick trip to Abbotsford thinking my wife just got hired as a professor in a tenure track position at University of Fraser Valley. So we went in for some quick meetings and noticed the traffic getting bigger and bigger, and we thought, oh, well, we'll grab something to eat, we'll take our time, letting what we thought maybe was an accident, just letting it run its course. And we were glad we did, because it ended up closing the highway and then finding out that, it was the flooding and somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 cars were abandoned and had to be left to, and people had to be rescued. So I'm grateful that we weren't there for that. But, we booked it on here, the only hotel that was available. We literally got the last room here in Langley. Grateful, they've been great to us here, and we've had lots of friends stepping up and saying, hey, do you guys need extra toys? What about your dogs? We're lucky our neighbor took care of our cat. It's those things that you think, oh, it's usually a quick day trip, we're not going to worry about it, and we usually pack a bag to make sure that, just because we grew up in the north, always good to have extra things. But we thought, it's a quick 20-minute trip, we don't need to. Lo and behold, we had to.
Do you think that there should have been a warning on your cell phone? Because many people are saying that alarm system did not go off, and it should have been there to warn you guys ahead of time not to do the trip that day.
That would have been really great, because literally the head of her department left probably maybe 15, 20 minutes after us, and she got turned around. That would have been nice we would have literally pulled over and limped our way back home. We did get hit in a couple spots that were pretty scary, but we made it through, and unfortunately there are a lot of people who haven't, and definitely our thoughts and prayers go to all of them.
Right.
But I think a warning system would be awesome.
Definitely. Now, you've just moved in here. You've just moved into your brand new house. I heard you say you haven't even unpacked yet?
Yes, we haven't even unpacked our boxes, and it's one of the reasons I feel like we're so unprepared for something like this. Because as my husband said, growing up in the north, we know we get weatherbound all the time. We grew up in Metlakatla, Alaska, our island community, and we get stuck in Ketchikan quite often. So when you're tired of living out of bags, you don't think about packing an emergency one, and that's been a big lesson for us, to always have it, no matter what.
Absolutely. Mike, we were talking a bit about the volunteers and all the people that have stepped up to help people like yourselves. What would you like to say about that community spirit that's really been there for those that have really suffered during this latest storm?
It's just absolutely beautiful. I really thank you all for your work and coming together and showing kindness. I think we need more of that, and that's just really bless them. Really asking for blessings for them.
Thank you very much, and we hope you guys can get home soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you in studio.
Thanks, Tina. Harrowing stuff for sure. To New Brunswick now, where the province's police commission says there was no wrongdoing by the police officer who fatally shot Chantel Moore. He encountered and shot the First Nations woman during a wellness check in June 2020. However, the commission's investigation found the issues outside the commission's mandate, and a coroner's inquest may raise those issues when it begins hearings next February. For decades, Indigenous people from Manitoba were sent to a handful of so-called Indian hospitals or sanatoriums in the province. In most cases, it was to treat tuberculosis. As our Daryl Stranger shows us, a new research guide is being set up to help families locate missing loved ones that never came home.
The University of Winnipeg created the Manitoba Indigenous Tuberculosis History Project in 2019 as a social media campaign. The goal was to identify unnamed Indigenous TB patients in photos donated by the Manitoba Lung Association.
And in a lot of cases, there is a wish to skip to reconciliation ahead of truth. It's truth and reconciliation, not just truth. And so our project is part of that truth telling.
While identifying patients is still a goal of the project, a new research guide is being developed to help Indigenous communities and families find those missing TB patients that never came home.
This is something that's critical to truth and reconciliation and really healing around missing people from communities.
A searchable database of historical photos and resources for researching Indigenous TB history will be part of the guide being led by Dr. Ann Lindsay.
What we're looking at is trying to find a number of ways that communities can tell their own stories about the history and record their own stories. So there's going to be an oral history project coming up. There's been other research in the past. And then this project as well to try and help people be able to find their own information about what's happened to family members.
Dr. Lindsay previously worked for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and has spent years helping families research connections to residential and Indian hospital schools. Simplifying the process of looking for a missed loved one is her goal.
What we want to put together is a website that not only just has sort of links and ideas of places to ask, but a process about, go here first, and this is the kind of information that you need to go to this next step, and also just present it in a way that is useful and understandable for the people who are going to want to use this kind of research knowledge.
An oral history project with former hospital staff is also in the works, along with a traveling exhibit. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Alberta government has announced funding for emergency shelters across the province. With temperatures quickly falling, some say the money should have come sooner. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
On Wednesday, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney announced $23 million in funding, $13 million for emergency homeless shelters, $6 million for COVID isolation facilities, $2 million for emergency women's shelters, and $1.5 million to create 200 beds at Commonwealth Stadium. 11 shelters across the province will benefit from the cash. The NDP Seniors and Housing Critic says the province should have provided the money sooner.
Jason Kenney waited till we had a foot of snow on the ground and temperatures plummeted before he did anything to help Albertans.
Well, I'm excited.
Judith Gale is with the Bear Clan Patrol. They see firsthand every day how severe the homeless problem is.
We need more housing. We need more family shelters. We need to help our brothers and sisters get out of this perpetual cycle.
The government also announced a task force. 16 members will collaborate and try to find a way to reduce and potentially eliminate homelessness. One of the members is Cheryl Whiskey Jack. She is the executive director of the Bent Arrow Traditional Healing Society. She says the funding is welcome, but more is needed.
It sounds like a lot of money, but the problem we have is a wicked problem. We live in a province where it's very cold, 6-7 months out of the year, and so this is a very important job that we have to do ahead of us.
She says the group will work together to find solutions.
The task force is being tasked with providing direction and expertise to the development of the model and to develop that draft model with recommendations within 6 months. So we have a very short timeline to get our work done. At the end of it, we have to submit a final report to the minister with specific and actionable recommendations.
Recommendations that she says will work towards eliminating homelessness.
What we're going to be doing, I'm hoping, is creating a path to that. it has to happen in steps. And so the shelter work that's happening out there is an important step in that process. It's a way to engage people to that path to being housed.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Nunavut has a new premier. We'll hear from him after the break. Welcome back. The family of a Blackfoot man who died in Calgary police custody over a year ago is still looking for answers as Alberta's Serious Incident Response Team continues to investigate how he died. His mother seeks justice. APTN's Tamara Pimentel has that story.
A vigil for 41-year-old Sonny Crazybull was held at the C-Train station over a year ago now. This is where he was arrested on October 23, 2020. His family in shock after learning Sonny died in police custody. Today, the cause of death is still unknown. And for his mother, Shelley Crazybull, that shock hasn't gone away.
I would like answers now. It's been over a year. My son, he was so a gentleman. He was loving, caring. He was a kind person. He didn't have to go through this.
Sonny told his mother he was meeting his niece at the train station and would walk her home to attend a church service together. That's when he was arrested following reports of a man in possession of an airsoft gun. He ended up being charged with breach-related offenses. According to a police report, it was stated that during a routine cell check, Sonny was eating his meal. By the next check, he was unresponsive in his cell. Hours later, Shelley was notified by police that her son had passed.
I couldn't believe it. It was very unbelievable. My son was just home. He was okay and he's healthy. He's very healthy.
The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team is still investigating what happened to Sonny Crazybull, and results may not come for some time. In a phone call with APTN, an ASERT representative said the team is under-resourced and is still working on files from 2018.
It's taking too long. That night, when the police came, things haven't been the same for me.
2020 was a difficult year for Shelley. 9 months before Sonny's death, her daughter Carmen passed away. Photos of the two surround her home, reminding her of happier times as she waits for closure. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Calgary.
Nunavut's 6th Legislative Assembly has held their leadership forum and chosen a new premier. A 37-year-old former president of a land claims organization. Our Kent Driscoll joins us to explain just what went down at the Legislative Assembly. Kent, so who's the new premier?
Thanks. And Nunavut's new premier is PJ Akioko, two-term president of the QIA, the Regional Inuit Association for Baffin Island. He left that job to run for assembly, and now he's the premier. Under Nunavut's consensus system, the members together picked the premier. Now, Akioko faced off against incumbent Premier Joseph Ikita and former Health Minister Lauren Kusagak. Now, as QIA president, Akioko sat on the Nunavut Tungavik board. That's the territorial Inuit organization. Now, NTI have been at odds with the government of Nunavut for more than a year now. Lawsuits, the works. Here, Akioko is answering a question about how much influence NTI should have in the Legislative Assembly. He's speaking in Inuktitut, so the voice you're going to be hearing is that of the Legislative Assembly's interpreter.
If I get elected as premier, this would be my priority to go directly to the president of NTI and explain that we want to have an open relationship with them. And on top of that, I will work hard about the regional Inuit associations in the Kivalliq, Katilmut, and Qikiqtani regions. I would go to their communities and listen to them.
It sure sounds like NTI will have the ear of the new premier. The Inuit organization questions continued at the Assembly. Here's what the new premier had to say when asked about working with those Inuit organizations on the important issue of housing.
And also, it's not really Nunavut, it's NCC or SACU or QC. Those are organizations. I think we have to be open to them on how we can work together better on lack of housing. We have to collaborate on that.
Here's why that answer is important. He's describing the business development arms of those Inuit organizations. Now, every Nunavut premier talks about wanting to have a closer relationship with Nunavut Tungavik, but it looks like this premier is proposing something very different. Back to you in Winnipeg.
Thanks a lot, Kent. COP26 concluded last week with a pact to combat climate change. But how does the deal approach Indigenous rights? That's the topic of discussion on Nation to Nation. Here's host Brett Forrester with a preview.
It was billed as humanity's last best chance to mitigate the worst impacts of climate change. Talks went right down to the wire, but a deal was eventually reached. I'm joined by Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault, who signed the pact for Canada, and activist Ariel Deranger, who was in Scotland with Indigenous Climate Action. The minister says it's a step in the right direction. Deranger isn't so sure. Also on the show is the country's first Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. Ron Ignace explains why he decided to establish his office in the former Kamloops residential school. That's all in just a few minutes.
Welcome back. Time now to take a look at our photo of the day. This shot was sent in by the Kiitukmit Heritage Society in Cambridge, Nunavut. They wanted to share the smiles and amazing work from this group of Inuit women who completed their very own Mother Hubbard-style parkas during a workshop. Beautiful looking work. You can submit your photo to share at aptn.ca. Be featured as our photo of the day. Include a location and description of the photo. Great stuff. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 3 with showers in Halifax, rain and 10 in St. John's. -1 with snow in Nain, +4 with flurries in Happy Valley Goose Bay, 4 with flurries in Montreal, 0 and snow in Chibougamau. 4 with snow in Sault Ste. Marie, 0 in North Bay. +3 in Thunder Bay, -3 in Sioux Lookout. -4 for God's Lake, Thompson, Puckatawagan, and Norway House. 2 below in Winnipeg and Dauphin, 0 for Brandon. -3 in Regina, showers, and 5 below in Saskatoon. -5 in Meadow Lake and La Ronge. In northern Alberta, plenty of snow, -11 in High Level, -5 in Fort McMurray. +2 with showers in Medicine Hat, 3 and cloudy in Lethbridge. Sunny and 7 for Vancouver, 8 under the sun in Victoria. 0 in Prince George, snow, and 2 in Smithers. -20 with snow for Old Crow, 17 below in Whitehorse. -5 in Yellowknife, -14 with snow in Norman Wells. 22 below and snow in Sax Harbor, snow, and -19 in Paulatuck. 8 below in Chesterfield, -7 with snow in Whale Cove. -24 in Resolute, 17 below with snow in Joe Haven. An exhibit at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic in Halifax is celebrating the many ways the Mi'kmaq continue to be unique, even after 300 years of colonization in the region. Angel Moore has that story.
The new exhibit is called Donmeg Delgeg Nuwaldiek. It translates into English, How Unique We Are. Displays show the strength of Mi'kmaq culture and treaty relationships.
We have panels on evolution of the culture. We have panels on recreation, economic activity, water protectors, rights and responsibility, as well as the truth about different environmental impacts and how those impact our lives.
The youth of Pictou Landing First Nation built and painted this boat to share their connection to the water. Historian and guest curator Selena Kemp is from the Millbrook First Nation. She hopes the project inspires cultural pride because it was lacking when she went to school.
There was almost no representation of Mi'kmaq culture, and often when there was representation, it very much placed us in the past. And so this exhibit provides viewers with the opportunity to learn about the Mi'kmaq, not only of the past, but the Mi'kmaq of today.
The exhibit begins with a projection highlighting the connection to the land and water, featuring objects and artifacts of the past that inspired the present, such as the hockey stick. This small canoe and doll were created in the 19th century to trade with early Europeans.
One of the things that the Mi'kmaq adapted post-colonization was the creation of commodity art. And this is very much for the purpose of selling souvenir art to the many visitors to this land.
The lobster spear is no longer used, but the tradition remains strong.
And that was the concept of how wonderfully unique the Mi'kmaq continued to be even after all of this time.
The exhibit reveals Mi'kmaq culture of the past and the future, and it will run until next year. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabukduk, also known as Halifax.
Looks pretty cool. Well, tomorrow night on Investigates, we'll be seeing part 2 of In Plain Sight. That's Kenneth Jackson and Cullen Crozier's investigation of the streets of Kenora. Here's a preview.
I've probably encountered a handful of cops that were willing to pay for services.
I've sat and listened and really couldn't believe what I was hearing.
First it was your small talk, like how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Are you still straight and sober? Are you still up to old habits? And as soon as you said old habits, I kind of got a sense of what he was talking about.
We've taken pictures and we've shared information with the OPP, but again, it's that willingness for them to say what's been going on, what's happening.
How do you get around that when there's stories of your own officer partaking in that life?
And you can catch that full episode tomorrow night right after the news. Part 1 definitely left you wanting more. Looking forward to it. That is going to do it for your APTN National News for this Thursday. Of course, for news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for joining us. Stick around. Nation to Nation with Brett Forrester is up next. Have a great night.